hardly knew anybody, so it was great. I could just sit around and talk to people, you know,
It wasn't like you.
the New York people, and I didn't have to worry about being lazy with relatives because they made the trip.
Trump has to worry about New York.
It seems like they got a thing for him.
Yeah. I'm not sure who they like, to tell you the truth.
I don't think I know that either.
No.
I don't watch any regular
ahead, Tom.
TV, but I had it on the plane last night, and apparently they got some
Got
contested.
it, Tom.
Recording in
some
progress.
black dude that's running for a position, and you know, it's a Republican apparently, but there were competing commercials about how great this guy and how terrible he was.
And,
All right,
and it
I'm gonna get
turns out
started.
he was doing both of them.
All right, welcome everyone. It's now 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 18th day of June 2024. I would ask everybody to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, will you lead us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. We ask for peace in the warring countries. Bless the sick, the injured, and those who have passed as we pray for an end to the conflicts that exist today. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, Mark, thanks. I appreciate it. Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Kotrick,
Present.
Krug is present, Kessler,
Here.
Gopal,
Here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board.
All right, thanks, Bob. And I'd also like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, our Operations Manager Tom Broker, our Fire Chief Ryan Boltz is here tonight, and our Assessor Julia Wilson, and our Zoning Administrator Mike Deem are also present. Additionally, the following Township officials are also on via Zoom. Our Township Engineers, Ellen and Melissa Lawrence. Are they on?
Yeah, Alan's on.
Oh, there you are. Ellen, I'm sorry.
We want Melissa though. Where's Melissa?
All right. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, to the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised this meeting is being recorded to be shown on public access television, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Krug votes yes. Kotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. The next business in order is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes for the June 4th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices? Okay, moving on. A motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $611,663.03 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kotrick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented. Moving on to public hearings, we have none this evening. Moving on to reports, are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? All right, hearing none. Communications, we have none this evening. Next, we're going to our master plan adoption. This is the adoption of the 2024 Fenton Township Master Plan. Our zoning administrator, Mike Dean, will review.
Yeah, the last time you guys met, we talked about the adopting the master plan. It was 3-3 tie, and it was asked that the planning commission review the the master plan based on the comments and discussion that was held here. There was really two topics, right, that the Planning Commission focused on, right? It was agriculture and the low-density residential classification for the future land use, and then Silver Lake Road. For the agriculture in the low-density residential classification, the Planning Commission was recommending a clarification to that definition. Basically, it would be adding "and agricultural uses" to both the intent and uses. So it would now read, the intent of this future land use district is to provide single-family residences and agricultural uses on the largest allowable lot sizes to preserve natural open space and maintain rural character. And then for uses, the primary use is single-family homes and agricultural uses. And again, that's for the low-density residential, right? Because the intent was always to include agriculture in that classification. It was just for what, not in there, but that was the philosophy for the past 20 years, and I think we can clarify that, and that's what the Planning Commission recommended. Planning Commission, again, looked at the future land use classifications for Silver Lake Road, specifically the DPW property and the vacant property next door. And as we mentioned before, the Planning Commission essentially confirmed their original recommendation of identifying that as community commercial. And the reasoning behind that, right, is that those parcels are located next to railroad tracks. They're located on a Genesee County thoroughfare, located across from the State Bank pathway. They have nearby access US 23. They have access to municipal sewer, and it has potential to be access to municipal water. When those factors are looked at as a whole, right, those tend to be consistent with non-single family residential uses. The Planning Commission further stated that they felt that this area was sort of a transition zone. It's also, the Planning Commission also noted that just because something is classified for commercial, right, doesn't necessarily mean that rezoning would be approved for that. The conditions of the specific property would be looked at the time of rezoning. You know, items like a traffic study, or look at how the use fits in with the classification in the surrounding area, are all items that would be looked at as part of the rezoning when they make the recommendation to the Township Board. So with that, the Planning Commission did not recommend any changes to that future land use classification. John is here. He can give you some more background on the process the Planning Commission went through. I mean, this took over a year of public comments and public discussion. So the Planning Commission did all their background research in making the recommendations to you guys. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have.
John, do you want to give us some input from the Planning Commission side?
I don't have a ton to give you beyond what Mike has told you, because I was still engaged in my epic battle with the forces of evil when they met. But I do have the history of this. You know, I've known this. I was involved with it when we talked about it. And if you go back to 1,000 years ago when I was a baby trustee, you know, I did the MTA training on, you know, the Planning Commission stuff. And when you're looking at land uses, the factors that Mike has identified in his memo is what they tell you to look for non-residential uses. And it's, I think, fairly intuitive. It's on a county primary road. We've had, you know, stuff come up. I can't tell you that no way on earth that people would build residential up against the railroad tracks, because on the other side of the railroad tracks they did in fact do that. But we've had a number of proposals come through that just don't take fruition because it's less than ideal. So I think the Planning Commission made the right call initially, and it looks like they've looked at it again and said, yeah, we still think we made the right call. And I'm sitting here today, that's what I would tell you. These particular parcels with their characteristics, I think the suggested future land use map for that area makes some sense. Could you just rezone the entire township for residential use? Yep, you can, but then you get hit with lawsuits for exclusionary zoning, because you have to provide an area for every use within your township, even if, you know, I won't get into all the minutiae of the legal stuff. Sometimes you can get away with arguing that it's next door in a neighboring municipality, but generally speaking, you got to have areas designated for these uses, and those are the things that you look for.
So John, I have a question on that. So that area that we're talking about, it was the red area on the map that we're zoning commercial. So this is the first time in the master plan that we're going to change it to commercial, is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, first of all, we're not changing the zoning to anything.
Right, we're just changing the
The
classification.
future land use map.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I don't
Right.
want to nitpick.
But up until now,
nits. That's right.
It has been
Single
residential
family,
use.
pretty much the entire township
Right.
has been medium density residential with a few exceptions to avoid what I was talking about earlier.
So the only two changes, so it's always been located next to the tracks, it's always been down a Genesee County thoroughfare, it's always been located near 23, and it's pretty much always had access to municipal sewer or for several years. So the two changes I see here are the state bank pathway that's going to be put in and potential access to municipal water, right?
Yeah, I think
Those
it's-
are the only two criteria that have changed to change the view of the plan.
Well, you look at that and those, I mean, just looking at that list, yes. But if you look at what has happened over time, what is out there now is different. That's it's been farmland for as long as we can remember with an airport.
Right.
Schlopped in the middle of it. The stuff around the airport has expanded. There's been some senior housing that's, much higher intensity than some of these other things that has been put in there. And it butts up against the city of Linden, which is, again, always been there. But the entire character of the township is changing over time. I know that. I built a house 4 years ago, however long I built a house ago. It's changing. We're getting more dense. We're getting more demand for uses that are more intense than growing corn or, sleeping at night.
I'll say this, I don't think the planning commission has looked at that area in the past when they've updated the master plan. And, I think it was more, just looking at the way how the master plan has and hasn't changed over the past 20 years, and not a lot of change has changed in it, right? I think the biggest change of the last one was just having this whole mixed use category that, we don't know what to do with it, so we're just gonna call it mixed use, and if something happens, we'll consider it. And now we wanted to get rid of that to define things a little bit better, but I don't think this area was specifically looked at. And there was other areas in the township that weren't specifically looked at, where we got questions about, right, that the planning commission did look at, and they made recommendations to keep it as it is, based on the conditions. One of the things I've tried to do is, when people come in and ask things, kind of make notes, so that when we do go through this process, we're like, all right, well, what about this, this, and this? So we did have more discussion, I think, on different parts of the township between this and the Thompson Road corridor than had been done in the past.
And so you're clear, I mean, if you haven't gone through the process, you probably don't understand it. We don't look at every single parcel or whatever.
Right.
The natural tendency is to look at areas where you're getting action, where you're getting, requests for things, and you look at it and you say, all right, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? You look at the factors. So, did we literally look at it over the last 20 years? I can't say, but I can tell you that there's been a lot more action. There's been a lot of things happening in that area that have caused, more attention to it, which is why we're having the discussion we're having.
Yeah, I just wonder if the residents in that area really want more traffic on that road and commercial.
No resident ever wants
Right there.
more
I know.
traffic on the
So,
road.
I think there's still plenty of residents who live along that corridor who
Yeah.
moved to a rural area and would like to see it stay that way. And that's a busy stretch of road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
it
has
is.
been for many, many years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the infrastructure of the road itself could really handle, high-density residential and a commercial parcel in that strip. I don't think it's a good idea.
The way and you might be right, the way the system is set out has the tail wagging the dog on that. The road commission responds to problems when they happen.
Right.
They're not proactive about, you need to, expand this to 5 lanes and put turn lanes and all that.
Right.
It's when the problems happen that they do that. And, I don't, it's,
I don't want to create the problem, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put
Well-
it that way and say they would only address it if there's a problem, and I don't want to create the problem that makes them have to make
I
that.
think a good example is Thompson Road, right? I mean, that's been a known issue,
I think
and
that's
then,
a totally different characterization than Silver Lake.
but the process though, right?
Yeah,
Is
the
trying to
process. Yeah.
kick the, county to do something, right?
I get that.
Well, I remember also, just for history purposes, that I think that as a township, I remember as a trustee, sitting here for like 9 years and we never even had an updated master plan. And I think it was when we sat down, and I sat down and talked to you, and we said, this is crazy, it's been 9 years since we've even looked at it. So I think in my 15-year tenure, we've only had one master plan, and this is going into the second one. And I think that's correct, because I know that it was about 9 years when we started looking at it again. So that might have been another reason that wasn't really looked at.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time,
Thank you.
absolutely. Any other questions or comment from the board? All right. Resolution number 2024-10. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Well, this is the first of many tonight, and this one's easy. It adopts the 2024 Fenton Township Master Plan as Mike presented. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel.
No.
I vote no. Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
No.
motion passes 4-3.
All right, thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to the next business order is adoption of ordinances. This is rezoning number R24-001, Redwood, USA, parcel number 06-28-100-008. This is Silver Lake Road. This is going from ag to RM with conditions. This is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. Mike, can you bring us up to date?
Yes, this is conditional rezoning. One of the conditions on here was that the rezoning is contingent upon the master plan being adopted, so that just happened, so that condition has been met. But essentially, it's rezoning the property from ag to multiple family residential, with the conditions basically limiting the uses to residential townhouses, limiting building height to 16 feet, limit the length of buildings to 6 units, increase the minimum floor area to 1,200 square feet. They would have private roads. The rezoning is contingent on Redwood purchasing the property. No structures allowed within the 500-foot Zone 5 safety area from the airport. And then the final condition was that they connect to municipal water. Since we last met, the township has been in discussions with the City of Linden and Genesee County regarding the water connection, and progress was made on that. It's likely an agreement similar to what was done with the next door property, the skilled nursing facility, would be the direction that goes for that. Just adopted the master plan. So when we look at rezoning requests, what do we look at? The master plan. Well, we just identified this for a multifamily residential. So it is consistent with that. There will be site plan review still. So the site plan has not been, there's not preliminary review. Part of that review will have a traffic study, right? So we can see that the condition of the road is able to support what is being asked for, and what improvements to Silver Lake Road would be necessary to access that. Again, when we look at what's going on Silver Lake Road, there's sewers there.
Sorry.
Sewers there, water's
Sure,
there.
commercial.
And,
That's normally a $50 fine.
I don't see a lot of
Given
green
the-
and white
Given
out
the
there,
theme,
so-
we're going to let that slide.
and the pathways there. Planning Commission has reviewed this, and they have recommended approval of the rezoning. And again, we're not approving a site plan, because that would be the next step in this process.
Treasurer Tucker, do you have any?
Well, last time, when you did not adopt the change to the master plan, you did exactly what I've preached to you for 20-odd years. Is it consistent with the master plan, or is it not? And without the adoption of that, this request would not be consistent. So, thank you for that. to the three of you that voted no on the adoption of the current master plan, I don't know what to tell you, other than I want to keep singing the same song. Is it consistent with the master plan? And like it or not, it is consistent with the master plan. This particular piece is abutting an airport. Okay, so at least what I envision as you're heading along the south side of the road is a transition. You've got the senior facility, you got the city, which is by definition more dense than anything that we're going to do. And then you've got a senior service center. This is a high density residential use, and it's going to transition into medium density down the rest of the road. So, you know, to me, this is a good spot for this kind of a thing. And I guess I don't really have much to say. I'm happy to answer any questions beyond that.
I will tell you, we did meet with Water and Waste because one of the things that they will need going through the process is water, and that water would require them to hook up to the water system in Linden, though they are in our county. No decisions were made, but the one thing that we did walk away from is that it is possible, but it's got a long ways to go through that process. So I just wanted you to know that for informational purposes.
You're saying it's possible to hook into the
Yeah.
municipal water when it's eventually
Correct.
available?
Since the city of Linden is hooking up to the municipal water that's going through the township,
Right.
they should have what's needed pressure-wise and everything else to be able to have this development tap into that. I just, you know, that's not one way or another for me. I'm just giving you that information because I know that this deal can't go through without water. And that's-
it's contingent on it.
It's contingent on the water. So I just want to let you know that isn't even a possibility. I mean, we don't know if that's going to happen yet.
And again, that is a site plan, issue, right? I mean, the rezoning in and of itself takes into consideration of the master plan and the factors for the area itself. Any development obviously is going to have similar restrictions that are being asked for, but specifically the water agreement and how that works out, right? That's typically something that will be addressed prior to final site plan approval.
Okay, is there any other questions?
Approximately how many units total are we talking about? Remind me here. How many total units?
Can I speak? Okay. Right now, our maximum number of units would be within 2 phases. So we would build a first phase and the second phase, by building all at once. A maximum of 214, but it's dependent on the results of due diligence, so it could be less than that.
Okay.
And that is under the multifamily zoning density. I think it comes to over 5 units an acre.
Yeah, and the zoning ordinance would allow up to 6 units per acre. So they've taken, the conditions on here would actually limit the number of units based to, so it would be less than what the straight zoning would allow.
I'm just thinking that's about probably 400 extra vehicles pulling in and out along that stretch of Silver Lake Road.
And it's not that it's not crowded right now.
Right, just food for thought. Yeah, and right across, although we're talking about now it's consistent with the master plan, I have some empathy for the people who live across the street, who have been there for a very long time and live on decent size, what are probably considered low-density residential lots, maybe medium.
Any other questions?
In Linden they do.
City, it's a city across.
There are several houses along,
There's a barn, I guess.
what about these houses? Yeah, right here.
Okay, there are 2 or 3, yeah, it's not neighborhood, sorry, 2 or 3 people on Silver Lake Road, okay, thank you.
Well, there's a whole sub behind that. But that's all city, right?
That's city.
That's city.
Yes.
No, I think a portion of that is city and a portion is not.
No, everything across
No,
the street.
everything that's
Everything
residential
east of that.
is in the city.
We're talking north, right?
Yeah.
North of this.
Right.
Everything north is
North.
city.
Yeah,
Or west.
yeah, but they still live there. They still live there on large parcels that have been there for a very long time.
And I used to have a cornfield next to my house. I now have those same 200 houses that, you know,
I understand that.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Just want to give everybody enough time. Anything? Okay, a motion is in order to adopt an amendment to zoning ordinance number 594 to rezone parcel number 06-28-100-008 from AG to RM with conditions as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Gopel,
No.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
pardon me, Patrick. Yes. I vote no. Reed,
No.
Kessler.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Next, under adoption of ordinances, proposed ordinance for short-term rentals. This is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. This is the second reading of two proposed ordinances regarding short-term rentals. One is a zoning ordinance amendment to make short-term rentals a permitted use in commercial zoning districts and by use by special use permit in residential zoning districts. The second is a general or police power ordinance to establish regulation for short-term rentals. Both ordinances were introduced in the April 30th meeting and after extensive discussion at the May 21st meeting were referred back to the Planning Commission for further review. Mike, would you like to bring us up to date?
Sure. So I think it probably helps to go back to the beginning, right? Why are we doing this? You know, the state has talked about for 6 years about, you know, putting in their own state laws regulating short-term rentals. 6 years later, right, we still have nothing. We do receive complaints from neighbors. Some of the worst, we have people staying in RVs, which again, against the ordinance, we write letters in violation of that. People staying in garages, which we can't 100% confirm, but we have a fairly good idea. Cars parking all over lots, late night parties. And so the intent of regulating was to try to address some of these issues. The Planning Commission has spent over a year and a half reviewing ordinances, looking at best practices in other communities, and made recommendations to the Township Board. I think the philosophy that the Planning Commission had was that it would be beneficial to start out with a conservative ordinance that could then, you know, in the future be loosened if needed, because it's a lot harder to rein in a use once it's out there. With that in mind, right, the Planning Commission recommended having a cap requirement and distance requirements. Now, the Planning Commission were able to review the comments you guys made, right? They were shared a link of the last board meeting, and they were able to watch it. We have Planning Commissioners here today, and the rest watched on YouTube to try to see your point of view on everything. So the Planning Commission understands, right, that there may be different philosophy in how to regulate short-term rentals. I think the one thing that they are all in agreement is that they need to be regulated. They have made the recommendation of a 29 permit cap for short-term rentals. But at the same time, right, they've said they realize, right, that ultimately it's up to the Township Board to make that decision. How do I say this? They think that 29 is a good conservative number that addresses the existing number of short-term rentals that are out there currently. But if the board were to find a different number or different philosophy, that they wouldn't be heartbroken over that. It's probably the best way to put that. You have some options, right? You can follow the Planning Commission's recommendation of the 29. You could set a higher cap limit based on your own discussions. You don't have to set a cap limit. Or you could wait until after the first year and set a cap limit based on the applications that were received. The same for your 1,500-foot setback, right? Again, Planning Commission took a conservative approach to regulating short-term rentals. 1,500 is a lot, right? And so I provided a map for you showing our known short-term rentals and what a 1,500-foot buffer would do, right? Essentially, that creates, what is it, 4, I think, conflicts with the existing, or maybe it's 3 conflicts with the existing short-term rentals that are known. If you were to reduce it to 300, right, which is what our noticing requirements are for public hearings, right? So everyone who would be noticed would be the ones that would be affected by the setback. You're down to 1 known conflict. If you were to cut that buffer down to 200 feet, you're down to no known conflicts. And essentially, that would be protecting, the neighbors on either side, so they wouldn't be sandwiched between multiple short-term rentals. I would say that reducing the buffer, well, again, not the planning commission's recommendation, but it may address some concerns you have about people wanting to apply for a permit and then not use it, because a reduced buffer reduces the area of influence that they would have. Planning Commission also looked at transfer of ownership, right? They removed the administrative special use permit transfers and just left it for Planning Commission approval, right? They felt it was needlessly wordy and could be unnecessarily complicated. Then for occupancy definition, right, they recommend the removal of heartbeats, so it just says 2 occupants per bedroom. They did talk about residency requirements. They felt that 1, it would be difficult to track, and 2, allowing someone to rent out their home is not something that, it wasn't the direction they wanted to take, all right? But they did discuss it. So the Planning Commission's recommendation, right, would be for you to set the cap at 29 per resolution with a 1,500 foot buffer. Removing the section for administrative special use permit transfers, and then removing the word heartbeats under occupancy definition.
Thanks,
How
Bob.
do we have we discussed how we take care of the conflicts? I remember when we had a public meeting, a young man addressed the full board and said, I've saved for years to buy a house on Lake Fenton. And to his dismay, he wound up with a rental on both sides of it. So,
Yeah, so the ordinance as written would be first come, first serve, right? And that's,
say that again?
so the ordinance as written, right, would be the first applicant, would be the first one reviewed. And if it is approved, then that's where you would take the buffer from.
The other question to the board, I've done some research on this. The state of Michigan is going to pass a short-term rental agreement, and ours isn't worth the paper it's written on it, the state does it. Why, and I'm just playing on my own mind, why upset people that we live with and our neighbors in this soon-to-be not local community by doing this? It's just a thought.
I'll answer that if you want, because it's actually been a lot longer than 6 years that the state has been promising this rule. And the rule that they're promising will allow short-term rentals in residential districts. Okay, that's what they've been talking about.
But I would much rather have them mad at the governor
Yeah,
than mad at me or you or any of the other board members.
right. But without this ordinance, it is unlimited.
Well,
It is, but it's not.
no.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yes,
unlimited.
in theory, everybody in the township could do it.
Yeah.
But realistically, they've been doing BBROs for many years. We only have 29. So keep throwing this, potentially everybody could do it. Yes, you're right in theory, but practicality, it's not. okay?
Why would you want to leave the theoretical possibility there?
Because if we pass laws about anything that potentially could happen theoretically, we'll have a million laws here. I just want to, again, let everybody know that we don't have any, there's not been any issues, lawsuits with this so far. If this passes tonight, I can see 3 lawsuits that are going to be filed in the next week for the 3 conflicting ones, where the first one that gets there and the second one that's been doing it, I see a lawsuit. Oh, if I was the second one and my neighbor was doing it too, and we've both been doing it for 5 years, and Kate gets there 10 minutes before me, I'd sue.
So you're
I'm
responsible.
looking at everybody in the township as a whole, not just the, is it a benefit or a burden to the township as a whole? All right, I see it could potentially upset certain people, but I also see people at Thompson and Linden that are gonna be paying for a lawsuit that really has no effect on them if we pass this.
So your position would be to leave it completely unregulated?
I don't think it's broken. Okay,
Well,
I'm not
arguing with you, I'm just-
We're passing laws for things that haven't come up yet. And again, I see where does it end?
So how do we address Bob's example? The guy worked his
I
whole
don't-
life, let me finish.
Okay.
He bought a house, now he's got 2 on both sides. I'm getting calls at 1:30 in the morning from residents, taking video that I have. So when you say we don't have issues, you're not speaking correctly for the township. The township has issues.
First of all, we have laws for problems at 1:30 in the morning on the books already.
We have nothing that has
We do.
any
We
teeth.
can call the police.
Well, we
do,
can,
just don't enforce
but
it.
I'm just saying, all I'm saying is that
All I'm saying is.
all the time that's been into this, and I'm not saying I'm for or against it, I'm just saying that what worries me is if we don't regulate it, that you don't get the phone calls, I do, and I get them all the time.
That's your job.
It's my job, but is it also my job to say, well, we're just not gonna do anything about it?
We can do something about it. We have laws. I just see, man, where does it end? If we're starting to pass things, there is one situation where the guy bought it, yes, that sucks. I understand that, and it's not fair. But there are remedies that we have on the books already. Don't tell me we can't do anything about a loud party at 1 in the morning. Because we can. We just, maybe we don't. But. Again,
Tell the resident that,
Okay, I will tell the resident that.
because
but
the
I will
resident's
also-
calling and saying they call the cops and nothing happens.
Well, that's an issue to bring up with Sheriff Swanson.
Huh?
Then the cops decided it wasn't a bad enough party. I mean, they're gonna make something happen if it's, and this is the problem. The residents complain about somebody sitting on the porch and talking at 10:30 at night.
Well, it's the board. It's not time for
Again,
that.
I'm looking at this township-wide, not just lakefront people.
Well, Mark, to that point, as you know, we spent a tremendous amount of time getting township resident input into this.
I understand.
Okay, and when we got the survey results back, and they were much bigger than what I thought they would be in terms of the number, they were basically in 2 groups. One group said prohibit them everywhere, and it was close to 50%. Prohibit them everywhere, not allow them everywhere, prohibit them everywhere. The other group that was almost 50% was allow them, but regulate them. There were a few that espoused your position, and I don't remember what the number was, but it was a very small percentage of your residents that said they wanted done what you are advocating.
I understand that, but I think if you put in there that as soon as we pass this, if this passes, now, it ain't a lot, but it's gonna cost everybody in the township money defending this, whether it's a win or loss.
What-
Just for attorney fees, court fees, we've already recognized 3 conflicts already that we're immediately taking somebody's rights away from their house that they've been doing. And because they didn't get here at 7 in the morning waiting for the place to open at 9 versus the person that shows up at 8, they're gonna lose that, what they've been doing for years, potentially. And I just see we're passing, if we.
Do you have a
pass an
solution?
ordinance-
Do you have a solution for it?
Well,
I mean,
we
what
pass
would
an
you say?
ordinance for everybody, for every one individual that has an issue. which is what we're kind of doing now. You're bringing up one example, and again, I feel for the example, but again, where does it end? We're passing laws, it's one, there's an issue. There is a law come down from the state, I read that also, but I just see we're passing laws for problems that don't exist, and
Well,
where does that end?
George Dyball has been to every meeting that we've had on this. The township, the Fenton, Lake Fenton Property Owners Association, 80% opposed. They want a flat-out ban. They don't, you know, they're not interested in your allow it to, you know, whoever wants it
I understand
concept.
that, but.
Okay, well, you're telling me,
No, but
that
I
are-
mean, you could say, so let's ban them all. I mean, there's a solution. The property
and there's a
owners want it.
guaranteed way to get a lawsuit.
This is a guaranteed way to get
Yeah,
a lawsuit.
well,
We
this is
don't
a,
have any yet, John, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We haven't had a lawsuit yet, and I see it, as soon as this passes, we're
of
gonna
course
have
not.
three.
Why would we have a lawsuit? We allow them to do it, whoever wants to do it, wherever they want it. What's there to sue about? They can do whatever they want to do right
They
now.
can, but I'm not, first of all, they have to be within confines of the laws that exist.
True.
At 1:30 in the morning.
True.
There are laws that we have already on board that deal with that.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's enforced or not, I mean, what's to stop? We're gonna, now we're gonna limit to 29, okay, well, what's to stop them having a party at 1:30? I mean, what's gonna change somebody calling and bitching about them at 1:30 versus somebody calling and bitching about now at 1:30? It's the same thing.
Except the difference is if,
We'll have another law in the book dealing with it.
well, I understand you're adverse to regulation. I get that. I understand that. I'm not going to argue with your philosophy that we can agree to disagree on that. But if they come through and do this, they are required to get a special use permit from the planning commission. So you're not, the assumption that everyone that comes in front of the planning commission is going to get that special use permit, that's not a good assumption. Because we already have some bad actors out there, and we're going to hear about that because the neighbors are going to get noticed. Okay, so you know that assumption is not fair. But if you get someone that is a bad owner, that is a bad VBR owner, we will have the ability to make them not a bad VBR owner because they won't have the special use permit.
But we have people that aren't VBR owners that
Yep.
live on the lake that
Yep.
are the problem.
Absolutely.
already.
I could be the party guy.
That's my point.
Yeah.
The point is, we already have these issues.
Yeah.
Not with the VBR, but people that live on the lake now that we
Right.
have problem with. So what's the difference other than more regulation?
I can make that one go away. If you got a bad neighbor, I can't help you, okay? Other than the things that you're talking about, that you'll call the police, do the things that we have in the ordinances, because you're right, we got noise ordinances, we got all kinds of stuff that's out there, but that is not sufficient to deal with these problems. This gives us a mechanism if we have a problem child, and they're not all going to be problem children either. There are good VBR owners out there, okay? What the goal is to give the special use permits to those people, and to the ones that don't or can't comply or whatever, they're either going to fix it or they're going to lose it. I can't do that if I got a bad neighbor next door that's out drinking and partying until 3 every morning. You're right, I can't fix that problem.
You
But,
can.
well, just, there are those that argue that the mechanism for doing that isn't particularly good, so.
Well, let me
yeah.
ask a question, I guess is a legal question. I can look to you or Jack. Under the current Police Power Act, what we have, so, for instance, I have pictures that I received early in the morning, and they have 9 cars. The VBR or the Airbnb had a motorhome, I guess, installed so he could, at his garage, so he could put in his motorhome. So it's on Lake Fenton. Is there anything that we currently have? And I'm just asking a question. I'm not trying to defend one side or the other. Is there anything I can do to that neighbor that under current, what we have right now that says, if you got 9 cars in your front lawn, that I can do? Is there something on the books that we have right now that says that you can't pull up a trailer temporarily and plug it in for the weekend?
Yes.
So,
Yes to that one.
okay, yes to that one. Well, what I'm asking is that I'm looking at Mark and I'm saying, well, if we've got things on the books right now, because this should be very easy for me to control. And it doesn't seem like it's
What if
very
a
easy for
regular
me to
property
control.
owner did that?
Well, it's a civil thing, so he's gonna have to end up, so we're asking our residents to sue each other.
Well-
And I'm trying to help
Well, what's the ordinance? What are you
So
talking
we don't
about?
allow, we don't allow people to sleep in an RV. There's a very slim exception if your house has been burnt down or flood damage.
Okay.
Or during the construction, you can potentially do that. All other situations, no.
Is that in the zoning ordinance or the
Yes.
general ordinances?
What about cars?
Not sure.
Definitely in the zoning. I don't know if it's a general
Where's it
law.
hiding? I don't
I'm
remember it.
not familiar with that.
Do you know? Okay.
Not off the top of my
All
head.
right.
But
It's
I
not
do
a
know.
test,
for a
but you know
fact-
it's there.
Yes.
All right.
So I guess the
Wasn't worried
things
about
that I
it.
get the complaints are most are noise, late night. Pulling boats up to docks, they know that the boats aren't. And who am I gonna call at midnight to go check out the boats on a dock? So again, Mark, I understand exactly what you're saying. I've been doing this, I've been on part of this process, been to the MTA conference, 4 of them, 4 classes, and I walk out more confused every time I go in, because every township supervisor that I've talked to said this process changes almost every time they meet. It does. Traverse City just made a change, and they decided they were going to put sections right in their master plan that said, here's where you can go and you can't go anywhere else. So it morphs. So all I'm saying is that I don't want to eliminate them by any means, but at the same time, I feel for those residents in this township that have issues. And like John, I don't know what else to do. I really don't. I don't think my job should be a police officer for people that have VBRs. I'm not saying I'm against them. All I'm saying is that I can't think of a way to regulate or at least be able to enforce without an ordinance. So if there's a way to do it, then let me know if there's a way to do it.
Well, I don't think we can do it without an ordinance. I think we can do it without this ordinance and these ordinances. There's no reason, if we're trying to stop noise, that we need any buffer but 1,500-foot area buffer where none of these can be. If we're going to take away the permits when they make noise, then there isn't a noise problem from them. And if that's not going to work, and they're going to be noisy anyway, then what we're doing with these setback requirements is we're saying you have monopoly in this 1,500-foot area. You're the only one who can make noise, or not make noise. You can't make noise. You're the only one who can have this Airbnb or whatever. So the only thing that would make me, like, I can see being frustrated if I had a neighbor who moved in and they started running out an Airbnb, and maybe it bothered me in some ways. Maybe they were small enough they didn't really violate the noise ordinance. We weren't going to be able to kick them out, or they were small enough they didn't violate all our new requirements. But they were sort of bothersome to me. The only thing that would irritate me more would be then to be told, I can't do the same thing. I can't rent out my property because my neighbor is running it out. And then I can't sell to anyone who would want to take advantage of the same thing and rent out the property. I don't see any real benefit to these exclusive zones, and what I do think will happen is that they'll become very valuable, these permits, because you're the only one who can do it, and there's a limited number of short-term rentals, so then you really want to have the permit. And then we've decided that you can extend that, as long as nothing goes wrong, you're going to be able to extend it each year. You're going to be able to sell. You're going to be able to sell to a corporate entity. It doesn't matter if this corporation is incorporated right here. It doesn't matter if they live here. They can live across the country. Maybe they own a couple hundred of these. They just have to have a designated agent. The designated agent doesn't have to live in the township. The designated agent has to live within 30 miles of the house. So that's going to be, like, I'm a night auditor at a hotel. That's one of my 2 jobs. So I can guarantee you, you want the person, when there's a party and there's a noise complaint, you want someone who can go, who's close to the noise complaint to go address it. So I think we could try to make an ordinance, instead of creating these really valuable 39 permits that we're going to hand out with these exclusive zones around them, we could try to create an ordinance that's actually going to address the noise problems, and then we could enforce that ordinance to the point where it wasn't causing a huge burden to all the neighbors. And if we don't think we can do that, then I'm not in favor of a ban, but I think a ban is fair. I would rather be the person who can't rent out their home but looks and says, okay, none of my neighbors can rent out their home, so I'm getting whatever property value increase it is. I'd rather be in that situation than be the person who can't rent out their home and has the person next to them that can rent out their home and annoy me. I don't understand why the setbacks, I really don't understand the idea to begin with. I don't think it's well conceived. And I don't think the cap of 39 in the area makes much sense either, because you're going to have all these people on the lake who are clearly going to have smaller lot sizes because you want to be next to each other on the lake. They're going to want these, either they're going to want to get these permits so they can stop their neighbors from doing it, like we talked about, or they're going to want to get the permit so that they can do it. And either way, they're going to use up all the permits within, I'd be shocked if it wasn't within the first year. And then if some farmer wants to have an Airbnb on his property 10 years from now, he's not going to be able to do it. And it's not going to be because he's actually a nuisance to his neighbors. It's going to be because we put in effect a stupid ordinance, or a stupid set of ordinances. So I don't understand why we're doing it this way. I didn't think this was what they were going to do when we originally discussed it. I'd rather have either a total ban, or have it like it is, or have a regulatory framework that controls for noise. I think we're making a mistake here, and also if we're worried about lawsuits, creating this extremely valuable permit that we're then going to be taking away when there's noise complaints, and it's extremely valuable because of the exclusivity, it's not just because it's a permit. I think that's a recipe for lawsuits more than any of those other three options. So I'm not against regulation in principle, I just wouldn't do it this way.
Okay. Been in this board for 17 years is probably the toughest thing we've been through, because I feel for everybody out there. I know that this is a business, but I'm half of what he talked about I'm in agreement with. I mean, I agree with Mark. So we as a board did the process the proper way. We put it down to the planning commission. The planning commission took a year and some odd months, and this is the recommendations. It certainly doesn't mean this board needs to pass these, because I have issues, a lot of issues with this ordinance. But I also believe that without an ordinance, and I could solve Mark's issues, I'm just trying to solve issues. Again, I'm not on either side, but I'm thinking, okay, everybody that's got one right now that doesn't have an issue should be grandfathered. So no lawsuits if there's two next to each other. But then we're going to really piss off Bob's guy because he's got one on both sides. But we can fix these. As far as corporate ownership, I mean, that's very simple. We have a mechanism that we already have in place. That is a company that is going to monitor, do things. So really, it's better than the owner. Don't shake your head, Jack. I don't want to comment from you either. I'm okay.
Okay.
Bottom line is that the mechanism that we have in place is a better police, in my opinion. That means that I think it's, what is it, Mike? If they call within an hour, the owner has to respond. I mean, so we have those mechanisms, so I'm not worried about that so much. So, but your other ones, the other issues you have, I have no way to solve those.
Yeah, well, it's not so much, just to be clear, it's not so much that I'm like worried in the abstract about corporate, like, I mean, I don't really care if it's like, you know, 3 Fenton residents get together and form a corporation and want to have this, want to have a short-term rental. Like, that's not my concern. My concern is whether it's an individual or a corporation, not near the township, they're not going to be as invested in the township. Like, if my neighbor, before it ever gets to the board,
No stake in the community.
I would like to be able to go knock on the door of my neighbor and get a hold of them, you know, say, you know, I really don't want to make a big deal out of this. I don't want you to lose your ordinance or anything. I'm just, or lose your permit or anything. But you've got to, just please, can you just tell these people when they're about to rent out a property, you know, they really have to keep it down and explain to them more thoroughly, or you know, something like that. I don't think everything should have to be like a formal fight over we're taking away their permit. And the further away the owners of these properties are from the community, that's my concern there. It's not like
Okay, I understand.
some abstract vendetta against corporations.
I'm going to go to the audience. Is there anyone here that represents, and this is not public comment, So I just want you to answer the question. Does anybody here know a percentage of those people that rent out their primary or secondary residences over someone that is an investor, and I have 64 of them? Does anybody know those numbers by any chance?
I'm one. I have 34 total. I've been investing for over 10 years now.
So you have can you?
Only 5, which is directly across the street from the winery, that white building that.
Yep,
if anybody-
we've talked.
Yep. So it went from what it was to I invested to be sure it was nice and nice for the community, and I have 5, and mine is under one of my real estate.
But you have 5 here in the township, and you're a resident of the township, but then if you have 38, all the rest are out of this township.
Not far.
Okay. I just wanted to know, do you have a number?
I have 2, one in the township, owner occupied, so I do live there, not when my guests are there, but it's not owned by a corporation or anything.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a number, like somebody from Airbnb that said 80% of the people that post on Airbnb are owners, primary residents, secondary residents, or they're just investors. I just trying to find that number.
I also think though, if we have this set, which I don't want the setback stuff, but if we have it with the setback and everything, these are going to be more valuable than just your average permit. And so if you're underutilizing it, if you're, say, an owner in the house with a permit and you're just renting out one room or something, or you're renting out like a portion of the house, it's the most valuable use for it is to sell it to someone who's going to rent out the whole house. And so these aren't going to be equally. I wouldn't assume that if we adopt this ordinance, like whatever the percentage is around the country will be ours. I would assume that ours will go to the highest valued use because we're making it a transferable permit that's going to be, I would assume, going to be sold to the highest bidders. Or maybe there'll be people who really want to have their their really value personally their owner occupied, they value the experience of talking with the guest or something. Maybe some people will choose not to do that, but the smart financial decision is going to be sell it to the highest valued user.
I was waiting.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. The biggest thing that we seem to get is the noise. And I talked to several people, and one of their recommendations to cut down on the noise from a Friday, Saturday, recover on Sunday party crew is to make the minimum number of days that you can rent Airbnb, short-term rental, whatever you want to call it, to 5 days.
And
That helps.
What's the reasoning there?
Well, it helps in these folks' mind, and maybe my mind, that if you're running it for longer, you get rid of the people that, hey, let's go have a party. We all throw in a $500 or $1,000 and do it for the weekend.
I guess so. Maybe I'm just not understanding how that would function. But so I work at a hotel, so I can tell you the people that undoubtedly are the loudest are mostly our wedding guests. No, if I'm not trying to offend them, but anyone who throws a party over a weekend, I get that's the loud people. The people who come for one night are usually quiet. They're just stopping through on a drive, or they're a business person just stopping by. So the one nights end up being good. It's the 2 to 3 night people who are the loudest, I'd agree. And then if there's some really long-term business person who's just staying there, they're not, they get to know us and they're not a nuisance at all. But I imagine that if I want a place for the weekend, and if these things mostly get rented out on the weekend, I imagine I wouldn't mind paying for 5 days and going for 3 and having my party. And I imagine if that's the most valuable way that the Airbnb person can sell it, they would just sell it for 5 days at a slightly discounted rate to make it as though it would be the same rate that you'd buy for 3 days. You just the rate would just be 3/5 the rate, and they would still rent it out for
The
3
one
days of
thing that
practice.
keeps jumping in front of me, and
Yeah.
it probably other people, is I'd like to stay out of jail. But I have two soon-to-be 7-year-old granddaughters that swim and play in the yard.
Yeah.
And if somebody that was renting out their short-term rental did something to him, I'm gonna kill him. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, I don't trust someone that's drunk from Friday to Sunday afternoon.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's an argument either.
Ma'am,
She don't wanna get,
I think that's an argument for a ban, not for
Okay.
I don't think the 5-day thing would make any difference unless I think we'd have to have some way of, because unless you're like, maybe you could like ban renting it out on the weekend, or something, but like, unless you did that, like, I don't see a way that, like, I don't know, if I want to throw a party and I go on Airbnb and like the only option is to rent it for 5 days at like a lower rate than I would have rented it for 3 days, I think I'll just rent it for 5 days and have my party for 3 and just not be there for 2 of them.
I can't even follow my own directions.
Yeah. Anyways, I just don't think that would solve the problem. I think that's an argument for, if you just don't want people in and out at all from the community, I think that's an argument for just a straight out ban.
okay, it is this board's, I mean, this board has to make a decision. So we send it back. At this point right now, I don't know, I see more negatives than I do positives coming from this board. I haven't heard, like Christine, I'd like to hear a little bit from you and maybe Rob. But, you know, either we're gonna, I don't think we're ever gonna find a perfect solution. I really honestly don't. And sitting in this chair, you know, I'm certainly not God, and I can't make decisions. This board can put down a decision. I know everyone here wants to do what's best for the residents here. And we have a caring board, and that's probably why we are still sitting here fighting over this ordinance or discussing this ordinance. From my position, I want to have something that I can enforce to help those that are having problems. Other than that, I don't care. So if we can find a way to put teeth into something, and if that's currently what we have, and we want to allow everybody that's already have them to have them and put a cap of 200, I don't know what this board wants to do, but I think we either have to decide, well, we're just gonna let it go, or we're gonna regulate. And if we do, we are never gonna agree on everything. Let's just get that right off the table. So is there something that we can put together today to make small changes to this or major changes to this to where we could get the votes to make our residents feel we've got something in place, those that have them feel secure that they have them, and those that have an issue feel better to know that we are going to help them fix their problem. If we can't, I'm fine with just shoving this back to the Planning Commission. I'm sure they'll love it, John. But, I mean...
So can I offer a couple comments?
Yeah, you can certainly give it.
All right. So, I guess you guys have 3 options, right? You can adopt what's in front of you, which, again, I guess that's not going to happen. 2, you guys can figure out some sort of compromise. You know, maybe that compromise is no caps, no distance, right? And then roll with the rest of the ordinance. Sending it back to the Planning Commission is not going to be helpful. If we want to have further discussion, I would highly recommend a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and Township Board. Because the Planning Commission has their point of view, and it appears to be different than yours. And we're just going to be in the same situation.
Let me interrupt you right there, Mike, because let's go back even further. Okay, when we first started this, we had a joint meeting with the board. And I said, there are 2 paths that we can go down here. Well, and there were actually 3, because I didn't expect Mark's position, but that's a viable path. Don't do anything is a choice. We can I don't mean to undermine, enforce the existing things that we have now that's sufficient, is I think what he's saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
exactly what it's saying.
yeah. So, that's a viable option, okay? Then when we said a total ban, and at that point in time, I did not think there were votes for a total ban. I'm not sure anymore, okay? Looking around the table, I'm not sure. And I will tell you this, if I was gonna cast my lot about what I would pick for myself, I would probably do a total ban and know that I'm gonna get sued and know that, what's gonna happen. But I'd go fighting, I'd die on that hill before a different hill. Okay, and if you look at what our residents said, you can make a viable case that at least half of them, that's what they want, that's where they want you to die. They want this to not happen, period. So if that all has changed, and let's be clear, we've lost this summer already.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's done.
If we don't, and the summer is when this is relevant. I mean, there's going to be some activity, not summer, but the vast bulk of what we're talking about, we're not going to be able to do this year. So to Mike's point, if it would be helpful to sit down, because I understand what Kate's saying. I get, he's right. I mean, if you limit, the reason it's limited to a certain number and to a certain distance is to limit the total number that there are. And we all had, well, I don't know, maybe everybody had a basic economic, is supply and demand. You scrunch the supply, the price goes up, okay? You have unlimited supply, price is gonna drop, right? But then you got them everywhere. So, we can revisit all of that because when we first met, it was kind of abstract. We were talking about the concepts.
Right.
I guess what I'd say is that if you want something in place, for the rest of or for however long we can
It's
have it.
next year.
Okay.
We just face that
Well, okay.
reality.
The way I'd be willing to vote for it would be without the cap and without the setback requirements. And I still wouldn't like some things about it. I still want, I'm really not sure, there's just some strange things where, we allow fireworks if it complies with our ordinance, but we don't allow bonfires if they comply with it. There's lots of strange nitpicky things, and there's things I consider bigger like that, like the corporations being allowed to have them and the people outside the area being able to own them and the 30-mile. I consider all of those problems, but all those are things that you can kind of tweak over time. So I mean, I would still vote for it just so there was something in effect if it weren't for the setbacks and the caps.
Do we have enough consensus here to pass something, or do we just want to table it? I don't want to call for the vote right now for the ordinance as it stands because I don't think we have a chance of
I
passing
would be
that.
fine if we got rid of the distance and the number of permits being allowed.
Yeah, I think there's other issues to be worked
Yeah.
through. I actually like Mike's suggestion and left the other meeting thinking
Of the joint.
perhaps it would be good if we could meet with the planning commission and just hash through, everybody make a list of what their issues are and hash through. And I agree, we're not gonna come to a perfect solution, but I think we can get closer than this. And I think if we adopt this now, you're gonna start the influx and we're gonna have more questions than we have answers.
Well, I'll speak out. I wouldn't vote for this right now. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I think we either have to entertain what John said, go back, but again, I think we're going to be right back where
Mike's
we were.
idea, I agree with him.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're going to be back where we were. And again, I will do a lot of due diligence. I will look at other communities because again, Traverse City just changed theirs. They put them in districts or zoning districts. And what happened was the price of the property went up. Builders are now developing those. They're creating all kinds of problems.
They're a whole different area than we are. I
Right.
believe.
Well, that's
I don't
too, when you
ever
talk
wanna
about.
do Traverse City.
Well, and the thing
Lovely
is
city,
that.
But I don't ever want to live there.
If you go out to Virginia Beach, every one of those out there are 7 days minimum. But
Yeah.
look at the space. Now, who's going to go to Virginia Beach and not stay a week? I mean, so every community is going to be different, and we're underwater here, and we have a lot of riparians, and we have. I don't know what to do. I'm looking for direction from the board. I think we should table this.
Well, we just need to realize that there is no time pressure here. It's too late for this summer.
Yeah.
So
There's nothing we're going to do right now that's going to help the township.
this summer. But I think long term, now that we have something more concrete, Because what we were talking about was abstract ideas then.
Exactly.
This is obviously far more concrete than what we were talking about before. We can talk about some of these concepts.
I agree.
I would like to quickly add that although we're past this summer, time goes by really fast,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
You gotta do
just the
something this
number,
year, yeah.
if the path is still special use permit,
Yeah.
and even if there's just 25, right? I mean, that's not all happening at one planning commission meeting, right? So it's going to be multiple meetings that
Right.
we'll have to have. So, you know,
To get them.
with noticing requirements, you know, we really need to get sooner rather than later because we do not want to be in this situation next April because we need to be ramping up
I agree.
at that point.
Right, so by the end of the year, at the latest, we need to have whatever it is.
Well, I think we've talked this through, and I think what we should do is, I'd like to entertain a motion that we just, do I need to have them do that, or just,
I think you can just not take action.
Just- I was just not gonna take
Understanding that it will come back in some form. I don't think action.
Yeah, you don't need four.
okay, we all set with that? I mean,
Can I add one thing? Well, I have two, but for Sergeant Pritchett, is on you log all the complaints, right? When you give us your reports, all the calls in the township, correct? With the noise complaints and stuff like that?
There's a call history of every call.
Yeah, is there any way that your deputies would know if the call is being related to a rental versus a homeowner?
And if somebody calls it in and says, identifies it.
So I'd be curious to see what amount of complaints are, what percent of complaints are from the BVROs versus just the regular homeowners. And again, just to reiterate, my concern is I honest to God, with all my heart, have problems with telling people what they can and can't do on their property. Everything this ordinance would entertain is redundancy. We have ordinances that deal with noise, would deal with parking, would deal with RVs, that deal with this ordinance. Everything in the ordinance would just, it's all redundant. We've already had these in place. Maybe a meeting with Sheriff Swanson to let him know that we need a little bit more. And I know he's a great sheriff, but he's a PR sheriff, meaning, you know, if you don't want
I understand
to,
it.
you don't want to put the thumb down. And I don't blame him. I don't either. I'm back as a police officer too. I'm not that. Yeah, right. Police officer with my
Yeah. When did that happen?
name for authority 2 months ago. Again, I think there were maybe a call with Sheriff Swanson and let him know that we should maybe, let's take this a little more serious and address, you know,
I do think the
ordinances we already have.
I do think the helpful thing about an ordinance and some sort of permit system would be you can take the permit away, and then they know they can't rent out the short-term rental law. So it's like another, instead of just having to have them taken to court, you know, there's a easier mechanism of your permit's just gone.
Because we got
That's my point.
one code enforcement guy that works part-time during the week. We
Yeah,
got
who's
generally
gonna regulate?
one deputy, okay?
But if there's a call when there's not a deputy, they're still gonna.
Yeah, they backfill, but it's not like we have a force of police to deal
No,
with these sort of
and
things.
we don't need one. But again, if we pass this, everything that we're gonna pass is redundant. Except opening up to liability and the fact that, well, my neighbor, why can't I do it? My neighbor's doing it. I mean, that's a good point. That's fair, you know, and when it affects your pocketbook, that's personal.
Yeah, my residents, the survey tells me that that's a very minority position. They 80% of them, 85% of them either want them banned or allowed with regulation. And by that, they meant significant regulation. There's a very small amount of them.
I get it.
Yeah, and I would die on the other hill before I died on that hill. I would go the opposite of that and say there will be none
Well,
of them.
I'm not gonna look at just those that responded. I'm looking at everybody as a whole. And everybody that didn't respond, if there's lawsuits that come, which everybody on this board knows there will, if we start telling certain people they can't do it, that even the people on the west side of this map that have no BBROs circled anywhere, that is going to end up costing them more money because it affects it's not a lot, I understand that, but it's still more money defending issues that we're not defending yet. So if we pass this, I see it happening that there will be lawsuits immediately.
There's gonna, and I'm not a guy to say no, to poo-poo about when you say, oh, lawsuit, because we have insurance for it. But it's, you know, to Bob's question way back in, why would we do this now if the state's gonna do it? Well, sometimes when the state does it, they say, hey, if you've got an ordinance that's already in effect, before this law passes, it's still in effect. So, you know, there are things, there are reasons why. And nobody's here is being illogical. We just have different philosophies. And I think we need to, Vince is right, we're never gonna say, yeah, this is the answer. But, you know, at least we can all sit down, and I think there is some time to do it, but we do need to commit to doing it by the end of the year so that we're not having the same discussion
Do you
a year
know?
from now.
Do you know if there've already been lawsuits in Michigan on?
Yeah.
Have,
Oh, yes.
has there been
Nope.
one on just a straight ban? Like, is
Yeah.
the straight ban?
The straight bans will guaranteed get you sued.
Oh, I
Yeah.
understand they'll get you
Yeah.
sued. I'm
Yeah.
asking, would you have any of those been like resolved?
No, they're too
Okay.
new. I mean, not that I know of.
Okay.
I see them now when they're filing, because the
Okay.
bans are just coming out.
So we don't know yet if
Right.
if you're gonna win or lose
Right.
the lawsuits
Right.
that would come.
Yeah, there's been stuff from the Court of Appeals, though, that would lead you to think they're gonna allow them. Because, you
They're
know, some.
gonna allow the bans?
No,
Oh, no,
they're
they're
gonna
gonna
allow
allow
the
the
use,
rentals.
yeah, because the argument is this
Not
is
allow
not
rentals.
single-family residential, there's a lot of truth to it. This is like a hotel on a smaller scale, but they seem to not be receptive, at least the Court of Appeals hasn't. What the Supremes would do with it, you know, it's just too early to tell. But guaranteed, if you say flat-out ban, you're gonna get sued. Yeah, and they got the same insurance, you know, so, yeah, we got a deductible, yeah, it costs a couple of
Isn't
beans.
the ban kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
same lawsuits?
Yeah,
Because
right.
we're banning the
Right.
1,500 feet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's 3,000 feet realistically, right?
No,
One
just,
1,500
on each
foot
side.
radius, yeah.
it's a radius,
So it is
yeah.
radius?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so that is 3,000 on each
yeah.
side.
And
Or
all that.
1,500 on each side.
Yeah, both the cap and the radius was just designed to keep the number down. I said baby steps a million times, because that's what, you know, let's start small, and we're gonna figure out that we've done some things wrong, and we're gonna have to change it, and, you know, 29 may or may not be the right number, but, you know, if we don't do anything, I've said Wild Wild West as many times as I said baby steps, because right now we are in the Wild Wild West, and, you know, maybe that's not a bad place to be, I don't know, but the residents didn't tell me that. And, you know, I got my own opinions and all of that, but I really paid attention to that, and I get that maybe that you got more lakefront owners responding to the survey, but the truth of the matter is that's where this issue is happening. You know, it's not that every single one of these are gonna be lakefront, but it's gonna be 80+% are gonna be lakefront issues. I don't know that you can, we talked about, can we just regulate lakefront properties? I don't know that you can do that. I don't know that we can say only Fenton Township residents can do this. I don't know that we can legally do that. I can't say that we don't, because I don't know that. I haven't researched that issue. I am suspicious that equal protection, these sorts of things rolling around in my head that tell me that isn't gonna work, but I don't know that.
If we can have a 30-mile radius, I assume we can have a 5-mile radius or
Sure,
10-mile radius,
right,
you know,
yeah, or a 10-step radius.
for
you
having
know.
a designated agent.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all fair.
I'm going to end this. We've had a long, great discussion, and it sounds like we're going to move on. All I would say is that, and I'll stick my neck out. The one thing I like about small government is that we are held accountable to the people that we live around. And when I hear this board talk about, well, let's just the state handle it, I don't think the state's good at anything. And I'm not making a political statement. All I'm going to say is that the state is run by politics, and I'm not saying we're not politics, but I think we're residents
No, that's
more than
100%
anything
true.
else.
The bigger the government, the less
The
likely it's
worst
gonna be helpful.
it is, you know what, and they look at things differently, just like they took away zoning, local zoning when it came to, well, I'm not gonna get into that,
Yeah.
solar farms and things like that, so basically they can come in and tell us what we wanna do. So if you have a house, they can just plop a solar farm next door to you and there's not a thing you can do. This board is held accountable by the people that are here and the people that are residents. We have to sit down and have lunch with you or see you at a restaurant. So I hope that this board never entertains waiting till the state to do something because they don't do anything very well, and I'm on the record for saying that. But anyway, so we're just going to move on. And,
That's something we'll all probably agree with you.
all right.
Just so I'm clear, right, the goal is to have the discussion amongst township board, not
No,
with the planning
no.
commission?
I think joint.
No, we're going to do a joint. We're going to do a joint meeting.
Okay.
So we'll have to post that, and which we will follow all the Open Meetings Act rules.
And no
we'll post
decisions
it.
will be made.
And no decisions will be made, and we will have that, and hopefully, over the next couple of months, we will be able to work through until we can find some type of a solution that will make everybody, or not everybody happy, but the majority
Everybody
of our...
equally unhappy.
Yeah, everybody equally
There
unhappy.
you go, that's a good goal.
That's right, that's exactly right.
Definition
All
of
right.
compromise.
That's the definition of a
Nobody likes.
settlement when you're a lawyer. Everybody's equally unhappy.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. All right, moving on to the next business order is unfinished business tonight. New business, fire department resignation. Chief Holtz, will you come up?
Well, it's one of the sad things we hate to have happen. We had one of our firefighters decide he didn't want to be a firefighter anymore. So effective the first of the month, Spencer Hill has emailed me his resignation. I shared it with Tom. He no longer wishes to be on the fire department, and I ask that you accept his resignation.
All right, are there any questions or comments from the board?
The 13th Amendment says we probably need to approve the resignation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a motion is in order to accept the resignation of Spencer Hill from the Fenton Fire Department.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Fenton Township.
Didn't I say that?
You said Fenton.
Oh, sorry.
You can't be firing Fenton firefighters.
Gotcha. Any further discussion?
We're punch drunk.
Yeah, I am, trust me.
I would just say, I understand, obviously, we never want to see someone go, but obviously, we appreciate what all the firefighters do. But I can see why someone might have second thoughts or something about, being a firefighter, and obviously, I agree, we can't force them to do it.
We got a great fire department, we got a great chief,
Thank you.
and I know he's not taking it personal.
Yeah, and it's good
People
that the firefighters want to be there.
That's right. All right, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I vote yes, motion passes.
Okay, we're unanimous.
Where one door closes, another opens, I just put another application on Tom's desk for a background check. So he's non-trained, either fire or EMS, and he'll be down by Station 2, so that one will be coming through here shortly.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay?
Thanks for everything
Thank
you
you.
do.
1 second, please. Let me jump in. I want to let the board know that the volunteer fire department, ours, come to the school and entertained and educated the pre-K and kindergarten kids to the point where they give them a thank you card half as big as and it was a surprise because the one firefighter had to be the biggest firefighter I've seen. And the other, I wondered how she could carry the equipment she had to wear. And no, I just want to know, he is a good chief, he has a very good department. Thank you.
We have a lot of good responders, and we have a great board that helps us, and a great community that supports us. So that's what we go by. Thank you very much.
All right, next under new business is resolution number 2024-12, New Lake Improvement Special Assessment District, Byram Lake. Operating Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes. Since we are not doing the other resolution, we're going to renumber these, just so they're done
Oh,
chronologically.
yep.
So this one will be 11, the
11.
next one will be 12.
All right, I got it.
We'll make it all work, but just so that's understood. So Byram Lake, who has had their special assessment in place longer than any lake in our township, if it dates back to the mid-'80s, their most recent 5-year assessment has concluded, and they are in the board package. You see a request that the board initiate a new 5-year special assessment. They've also provided the budget for the program. So our next step is to schedule a public hearing on the creation of the new district, and we have a resolution that will do just that.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, resolution number 2024-11. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes. Tentatively declares the township's intent to continue the lake improvement project for Byron Lake. Tentatively designates the special assessment district as Byron Lake Improvement Special Assessment District number 3, which includes all properties with frontage on or legal access to Byron Lake. Schedules a public hearing for July 16th, 2024 at the Township Board meeting. Directs the clerk to publish and mail the hearing notice in accordance with statute, repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler.
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Cottrick.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is resolution number 2024-12, New Lake Improvement Special Assessment District, Lake Fenton. Operations Manager Broker, will you review?
Before he did that, did you see how he changed the number on the fly here?
Yeah.
He say he's punch drunk, but he's not punch drunk.
I'm punched out.
So Mr. Krug reminded me as the meeting was starting that we have one step we need to do before we do the resolution, and that is to entertain a motion to allow Mr. Krug to abstain from voting since he's
Because
not
I
on
live
Lake
on Lake
Fenton.
Fenton.
Well, move.
Huh?
Move.
Well, I live on the lake
I'm gonna
also.
make it an Airbnb. I'm sorry. That was,
I
He's
refuse.
punch drunk.
Yeah.
So a motion would.
We all live on Lake
Does that
Fenton.
create a conflict? I don't.
I mean, Christine lives on the lake. I don't think it causes
you
a
do
conflict.
too.
I just,
Yeah, no, I think it's good that you disclosed it, but I don't think it creates.
Unless you have a
I
financial
will
interest.
I don't have a financial interest.
Well,
Oh, it does. They're collecting money from him.
I mean, I know when we did the PST one, I believe Mr. Tucker abstained.
Did I?
Well, I mean.
Probably
That would
right.
require me
Tom's
to
usually
sustain,
right.
Christine to sustain.
yeah,
So,
well,
Yeah,
well, we'll still have a majority.
Actually, all three of you would have to.
Yeah.
Four
Um,
ones. I say no.
I just didn't want to.
know what?
Jack,
I say no. He can vote.
does it
Yeah.
create a conflict?
Okay.
I don't think that poses some consequential conflict. I mean, conceivably, there may be some conflict, but it'd be so minute that.
So
it's
you're
not
okay with
worth
us
it.
not abstaining?
No, I don't think you need to abstain.
okay.
He says you're all,
I
you're all
just-
rich. That's what he just said. This money ain't gonna mean anything to you.
I didn't hear that, John.
It's lawyer
I
talk.
didn't hear any of that.
It's lawyer talk.
So we don't need the
Never lots of
motion.
that.
We don't need it.
We don't need a
Sorry.
motion.
We'll
Just move on.
Yep,
Move
okay.
on.
All right, so similar to Byron Lake, Lake Fenton's 5-year special assessment has expired. They have requested a new 5-year special assessment, and they have also provided the proposed contract/estimate costs with their request. And so we need to schedule a public hearing, and we have a resolution that will do that.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, resolution number 2024-12. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Tentatively declares the township's intent to continue the lake improvement project for Lake Fenton. Tentatively designates the special assessment district as Lake Fenton Improvement Special Assessment District number 3, which includes all properties with frontage on or riparian rights and access to Lake Fenton. Schedules a public hearing for July 16th, 2024 Township Board meeting. Directs the clerk to publish and mail the hearing notice in accordance with statutes and repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
Support. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Cottrick,
Yes.
I vote yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Next under new business is resolution number 2024-13, proposed water system improvement special assessment district, landings at Cranes Cove. Operations Manager, will you explain?
Yes, so this is the first of at least two of these we're probably going to have. Landings at Cranes Cove currently is serviced by a type 1 well system, which they are paying a fair amount of money to remediate the arsenic situation. We provided them, Township engineer provided the cost to connect. We lump in the county and township connection fees, and they presented that to their membership. And if you saw the letter from the president of the association, they voted 88-8 in favor of connecting to the municipal system.
Wow.
So what we're
Water's
looking
doing its
at
job.
is a multi-year special assessment to finance those costs. And unlike a road where we're looking at probably 10, this could go 15, 20. We can kind of cross that bridge when we get to it, but depending on what the numbers end up, decide what makes the most sense and finance that. And Glenn Devon, I believe, is going to be submitting excuse me, a similar request. And if the timing works, we can probably finance both projects with one bond issue, which will save a little bit of money as well. But so again, the first step here is to schedule the public hearing, and we have the resolution that will do that.
I was just a little curious. I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter, but I was curious. Do we know if the 8 were 8 against it, or they just didn't vote?
There were 8 that voted against it.
Okay.
Is my understanding in talking to Mr. McFeeters, the president of the association.
So
that 92% is,
yeah,
it's a pretty.
No, I'm just
Love to have
I agree.
solid majority there.
I just was curious because I could imagine if it's going to save everyone money, if they're all expecting it would save money, I could see 100%.
Well, and I mean, it's municipal water. It's going to save them money
Yeah.
on both water and sewer.
Yeah, I'm not.
So-
I'm not stunned that it was 92%. I could even have imagined it being 100% with 8 people who didn't bother to say, But yeah, I guess we'll hear from. Maybe we'll hear from the 8, or maybe we won't.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, resolution number 2024-13. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, thank you. Tentatively declares the township's intent to construct water system improvements for the landings at Cranes Cove condominium subdivision. Tentatively designates the special assessment district as landings at Cranes Cove Water System Improvement Special Assessment District, which includes units 1 through 119 of the landings at Cranes Cove condominium subdivision. Schedules a public hearing for the July 16, 2024 Township Board meeting, directs the clerk to publish and mail the hearing notice in accordance with statute, and repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
I vote yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Gopal?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Next under new business, proposed revisions to the 2024 meeting schedule. Just based on conversations I've had with individual trustees and people on the board, that the meeting that's going to be held on July 2nd, that we might not have a quorum. So rather than asking everybody to come here and then just tell everybody to go home, I want everybody to look at their calendars and see if we are going to have a quorum. If not, then I would recommend that we make a change.
I will not.
And that will eliminate the July 2nd meeting.
I will not be here.
I will not be here.
I expect to be able to be here.
I'll be here.
You
Probably
won't
not.
be here, so there we just lost our quorum.
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't we just cancel it?
That's what
we're going to do.
Okay, I didn't want to read.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, a motion is ordered to adopt. Oh, well, what we want to do is just eliminate the July.
Well, there's a revised meeting schedule, proposed
Right.
revised meeting schedule in the packet that eliminates that meeting.
Beautiful.
So that's the correct
That's
action
the motion.
is to adopt
Great.
a revised schedule.
Okay, motion is in order to adopt the revised 2024 Fenton Township meeting schedule as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Reed,
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Cutrick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Again, the only reason why I did that is because I didn't think we had enough people anyway, and then, being close to the 4th, there's no sense in having everybody come here to do nothing. All right, moving on to the next business order is board comment. Is there anyone else on the board who has additional comments or concerns?
Should we expect an email, I guess, about scheduling a joint meeting?
I will meet with Mike in the morning
Okay.
sometime, and then we'll send out some optional email dates. It usually seems the best is usually before one of our meetings or before one of the planning commission meetings. But usually before one of our meetings, just schedule something an hour and a half, 2 hours before. So, Mike,
Well, I mean, doing it before one meeting, I don't view it as being a short discussion.
So we'll set aside the whole week of July 16th. We'll meet here at 8 a.m. and we'll adjourn
Wait
when
until we're
finished.
done.
When we're done.
Pack a lunch.
Yes. All right. Next business order is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. I'll now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? It can be either on an agenda or non-agenda item.
I will.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
If I can get up. I'm 85, my knees aren't as good as that.
All we need is your name.
Charmaine Thorley, I live on Windsor Beach, and we've been there since 1995. And I don't know if you're familiar with our little stretch, we're houses crowded in close together. And I could not conceive of an Airbnb, even though some houses might be conducive to that, because we're crowded in there, and it would just be people coming and going every week. That does not make for a neighborhood. What is happening to our residential idea of a residential neighborhood? And you were commenting about limiting it to 29 around Blake, or 29, I don't know, whatever it was. But that seems unfair, and I could agree with you, unfair and why should one set of 29 people get to have a really expensive business in the midst of our residential areas, which then might reduce the value of the houses on either side? And that is, that was one of my major questions. And I want you to consider that. And then to the gentleman one of you who had grandchildren, that concerns me too. In our neighborhood, I've seen several sets of young girls grow up. It's you get to know who your neighbors are, and you after you've been in a neighborhood for a few months or so, you kind of know, and you might want your children to stay closer to home, or they could go down to this person's house. You can't do that if you've got people next to you that it's one set of people this week and another set of people the next week. And to the young lady that said, people complain about loud talking, on next door, when do you call the police? Well, some years back, a neighbor had left town, and she left her college-age kids there, and they came, and they had a nice kids, nothing wrong with them. But, they were used to a different schedule. At 1, 2 in the morning, they're sitting out there laughing, talking. We are trying to sleep. So there is a difference. What bothers some might not bother another. So, and I had no problem. I went out to the kids and I said, hey, just pipe it down, and they did. Because they were there. That was their home away from their mother's home. And that's a difference in people who are coming in and paying a big bunch of money to have, maybe not just a party, but maybe someone just want a relaxation, but some of them are there to party. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much for addressing the board. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? Yes, Julia.
I just want to say one quick thing while I got you guys out here. And since we're going back over it again, I don't think the permit should be transferable. I think once a permit is issued, it should be by that owner, because that's the person that's vetted. And by doing a transferable permit, you're creating a market that cannot be measured for my purposes. So that, I think it should be, if someone sells their property, that new owner has to come back in. It can't be sold as a Airbnb with a granting of this permit. Because you're vetting one owner, they're selling it and that you don't know who this other owner is coming in, and that's our whole purpose of doing this, is monitoring this. And you're setting a market for the price of that permit that cannot be monitored in my practices. So in essence, what you would be doing by doing that and setting that price is any home that's an Airbnb would automatically be thrown out of a sales study.
Thank you very
Just
much,
my words.
Julia. No, that's great information. I may ask you to attend the meeting.
I will be there.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that in advance. All right, is there anyone else here that's attending that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda item? Hearing none, I will go to those who have joined us via Zoom. It's been a long meeting, but if there's anyone that's attending via Zoom that would like to address the board, if maybe you could just raise your hand or just turn on your mic.
Don says no. Thanks for participating,
Kim?
Don.
Done.
Jackie?
All right. Hearing none, I will now close public comment section, and it is now exactly 8:10 p.m. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Better than I would have thought, to be honest with you.